Hey everybody, Matty here with Altcoin Buzz. Happy Hump Day. We are now less than 20 days away from the 2020 Bitcoin halving. We'll take a look at what this means. As a reminder, I'm sure you know by now, we're also examining Mark Cuban's comments, Billionaire Mark Cuban that is. He's revealed why he would buy into Bitcoin potentially. That's covered by Forbes.com. We're then updating you on Dash Core Group's EvoNet testnet release. COVID-19 has had an impact on crypto exchanges, as you can imagine. Deepika will be summing that up for us. And then we'll look at this piece here on medium.com. Let's first, however, take a look at the markets on coinmarketcap.com. $201.5 billion right now. We've bumped up ever so slightly, up a couple of percentage points since yesterday. Bitcoin right now at $6,979, still below that 7K resistance level, but perhaps not for long. We'll see dominance 63.5%. We are here now on bitcoinke.io. Less than 20 days to go before the next 2020 Bitcoin halving. And there's not really a lot of new information here. The halving represents the block reward halving that occurs every 4 years or so. And you can check out the rest of this article for more detailed information. But as a reminder, in 2012, we went from 50 BTC per block reward to 25. The price on halving day was $12.35. 150 days later, it jumped to $127. Fast forward 4 years, the block reward was 25 Bitcoin in 2016. Right after the halving, it halved to 12.5 Bitcoin per block. The price on halving day, $650. 150 days later, $758. So we're not necessarily guaranteeing that history is going to repeat itself here, but there has been a pronounced, albeit delayed, effect on price that follows the halving event. And this time, of course, in 2020, we're going from 12.5 Bitcoin as a block reward to 6.25. You can see, obviously, there's some other charts here, including this very appealing, in my opinion, Bitcoin inflation versus time chart. Of course, as a result of this halving metric that's built into the algorithm, Bitcoin is a deflationary currency. There are a lot of other variables at play right now. We have oil prices crashing. We have a global recession that seems to be looming. We have all kinds of economic turmoil that we're facing, and thus the profitability for Bitcoin miners is much more difficult and much more of a problem than it has been traditionally. However, there are a couple of factors working in Bitcoin's favor, and I would say that in the midst of what's happening right now, there's a decreased confidence in everything that the central banks, including the Federal Reserve, are doing in the eyes of the public. This endless, infinite, quantitative easing is something that a lot of people are calling out. We know it can't last forever, and even if if you're in support of something in the short term, some kind of a stimulus measure to help jumpstart things again, that's okay. But all it really is a temporary bandage. It's not addressing any of the over-leveraged, debt-extended practices that this economy is based on. I don't want to get into too much of a rant. All that to say is there are some variables working against us. There's some variables working in our favor. We're going to see what the 2020 halving has in store for the price of Bitcoin. Switching gears, however, on Forbes.com, billionaire Mark Cuban reveals when he would buy into Bitcoin. Of course, Cuban has come out and has shown a lot of hostility toward Bitcoin in the past, saying he'd rather have bananas. But now, after previously branding Bitcoin, quote, too hard to understand, Cuban has said that he'd support Bitcoin if it were easier to use and if it could be spent without having, quote, to convert it to fiat currency. Quote, Bitcoin would have to be so easy to use, it's a no-brainer, Cuban told the co-founder of asset manager Morgan Creek Digital, Anthony Pompliano, on the Pomp podcast last week when he asked what would have to happen to change his mind on Bitcoin. You've got to be able to spend Bitcoin, Cuban added, quote, because right now you still have to convert it for anything that you want. And as long as you have to convert it, you're still dependent on government-backed fiat currency. I don't know. I detect a little chink in the armor there. I'm not sure how you guys perceive this, but I think someone should let Mr. Cuban know that all in due time, that's exactly what we're trying to create. As adoption increases and as services and the versatility of the asset, of course, increase, the merchant adoption is going to similarly increase. And I think there are all kinds of services out there presently, where you don't necessarily have to convert into fiat currency. A lot of people out there are accepting Bitcoin. Certainly not everybody, but it's a number that's going to increase with time, not decrease. And let's end on this, that he said, quote, to Bitcoin's potential benefit, if everything goes goes wrong, because we're printing so much money and there's global implications, Bitcoin has something to deal with. And if we don't, Bitcoin's got nothing. Cuban told Pompliano. In other words, he's saying that all these actions being taken by central banks like the Federal Reserve in response to the coronavirus pandemic could very well give Bitcoin real purpose. We are looking at Dash now on altcoinbuzz.io. Dash Core Group's EvoNet testnet release. Article here by Rachel. Plans to utilize agile principles to release new software updates expected every 6 weeks. The Dash Core Group, DCG, the firm behind privacy-centered cryptocurrency Dash, has disclosed plans to release a new update on its EvoNet testnet every 6 weeks. And this move by Dash to release frequent updates is a significant one. That's because all available nodes in a decentralized network takes ownership of the deployment environment. And as a result, it takes a lengthy harmonized effort before upgrade to the most recent software possible. And Dash Core Group is planning to utilize agile principles to release new software. And there's also another reason for announcing these updates. The blog post explained that no two releases would follow the same process. Besides, they would require different timeframes to implement. Therefore, it made sense to keep the deployment date within a range, quote, as opposed to an exact date. Speaking here about the Dash software releases on EvoNet. Despite all that we have to look forward to, writes Rachel, and despite its accomplishments, DCG, as a reminder, is still a startup. And this indicates that it is in the process of finding its foothold in terms of, quote, organizational structure and processes, which are still in a fluid process of creation. And the organization expressed confidence in getting better, more organized, efficient, and informed in attaining its potential. We wish them luck. Also on altcoinbuzz.io, we're looking at this piece by Deepika, COVID-19 versus crypto exchanges. Intense price drops, panic selling, exchange overload, and then markets collapse. COVID-19 is an interesting time for crypto exchanges, to say the very least. March 12th, 2020. It's a date that will live in infamy. It turned out to be a, quote, Black Thursday for crypto markets. And the Bitcoin price was already on a downward spiral, but the sudden drop from $7,860 to $3,867 shook the entire crypto market. And then we stood witness to the worst bloodbath since 2013. Within 13 hours, crypto lost 25% of its market cap. Some laid the blame on the institutional sell-off, while some held pandemic COVID-19 accountable for what happened. Notably, there are some infrastructural deficiencies that were made very apparent during this perfect storm of problems that we saw in March. Again, a combination of naturally declining prices in cryptocurrency and a black swan event in the form of COVID and the pandemic and the quarantine and a worsening economy globally. And so in that context, we saw a lot of strain being placed on the traditional infrastructure of known exchanges. We had some other ones that came out, some new entrants in the space, such as Stormgain, that seems to be boasting infrastructural excellence compared to the old batch. But there were some problems that we saw across the standard lineup. For example, BitMEX, the unforeseen volatility walloped the exchange. As soon as the price dropped, BitMEX started the liquidation of positions. When the traders realized they were getting liquidated, they started pushing more Bitcoin collateral to regain the positions. So effectively, this congested the Bitcoin blockchain. Then you had Huobi and Binance, the fiat gateway of both the leading exchanges, could not handle the Bitcoin and USDT buy orders. Traders raised concerns over auto deleveraging on Binance. On Deribit, well, they experienced a double outage. One while the market was crashing, and next immediately when the market was recovering. And then you had Bitfinex and OKX. They suffered downtimes in late February 2020 when the market had started indicating a potential crash. FTX suffered from database overload, leading to significant order book lag, and Gemini, the exchange, went offline for a full 45 minutes on the 12th of March. These are not problems we want to see repeated in the future, and as Deepika writes, undoubtedly infrastructure is really at the core of what needs to be fixed across some of these platforms. So Darwinian evolutionary theory suggests survival of the fittest stands true in the crypto sphere. I guess it also applies. Let us wait and watch, writes Deepika, when and which exchanges will adapt to the sine qua non. And finally for today, everybody, and this is perhaps linking back to comments by Mr. Mark Cuban, but Bitcoin Beach is a pretty encouraging product. So yes, Bitcoin feeds. This relates to a lockdown scenario. There's actually martial law that's been declared in the country of El Salvador. And you see in these situations, it's not the first time, perhaps it's the first time it's taken on this particular flavor in a martial law setting, but you have a lot of very organic individual groups, that individuals and groups, I should say, that come together and create moments of opportunity when things look bleak. So here you have these communities within El Salvador that are catering to those that are less fortunate, that are helping literally to feed individuals using Bitcoin. Again, in martial law situations, there can be a lot of corruption. Transparency is always a difficult challenge. Even, issues of inflation and valuation of your national currency becomes an issue. Money, to a certain extent, fiat currency I'm talking about, tends to lose its value, or at least it's very unpredictable. So you have Bitcoin here in a very real way that has been used as a mechanism to support this charity effort. Check this out for more information. B4H. Again, it's a very impressive endeavor. It's something that we can write back to Mark Cuban about and tell him that, look, in a pinch, this is what we were able to construct in a very charitable, temporary sense. Just imagine if people put their minds together what we could do. I think it speaks to the vast potential that Bitcoin has in situations like these and beyond. So check out this article. We'll link to it in the description below. But that about wraps it up for today, everybody. Do be sure you're following us on all the regular social media channels and keep checking back into altcoinbuzz.io for all the latest. Go ahead, like, subscribe, share, and hit the bell to receive notifications if you've enjoyed today's video. Best of luck, of course, if you choose to invest on this hump day, on this Wednesday, but have a great midweek, everybody. And as always, we do hope to see you again soon in our next video. Take care.